Running service more profitably means more than just fixing things fast. It's about optimizing every step: scheduling, inventory, technician productivity, and even generating new revenue streams.
Specifically, we talk about services. Hey, how do I run service more profitably? We know that one of the ways that service can run profitably is by optimizing service. Being able to make sure that you have high first-time fix rate. You optimize the schedule so that you lower the redundant travel time between technicians. You figure out which part to use and where they are and how and when and how much of an inventory that you keep, technician productivity, and even preventative maintenance. A lot of this is what we call service optimization. However, which means that this is kind of what our software does really well, technician enablement, scheduling. But the other aspect is we realize is that there's an opportunity to generate revenue also, right? What does that mean? Well, in addition to just trying to do work really, really well and more efficiently, you could try to generate revenue. And how do you do that, right? Well, a big part of it is like maybe you can fundamentally change the way you provide service, maybe the way you actually structure contract, right? Maybe, rather than focusing on so much about reactive service, you can go to things like outcome-based service, right? You can try to figure out which part of your install base needs to be upgraded and modernized. You can sell your customers spare parts and digital upsells. All these things, if you kind of think about whether it's about performing service more efficiently or being able to fix that particular issue at the very first time, or being able to provide customers with the model about things like outcome-based service, if you really, really think about it, all of that actually require you to understand the intent of the product, right? How can you provide outcome-based service? How can you do predictive service? A prerequisite is you would need to know how that particular system was designed to run in the first place. Now, what we quickly realized is, in theory, how do we actually make all these things happen? What is the prerequisite for all this? And we quickly realized that the prerequisite for this is that all the data has to converge around the asset itself, which means that I think many of you guys actually talked about it. The challenge is that all these things becomes possible, whether it's talking about work instructions or planning for a particular service. It's actually the prerequisite for all that is actually accurate install-based data, right? In fact, we kind of talked about this idea of digital thread and understanding the intention of the product and then service being able to use that particular information. And then also vice versa, for product engineering to understand how this particular equipment is performing out into the field. And the prerequisite for being able to do that is, again, being able to track accurate information about your install base throughout its asset lifecycle. So the question is, how do you do that? Like, why can you do that, right? So we quickly recognize this because ServiceMax has been in service for a long time. And while we do talk a lot about AI, in reality is that people have been talking about service insights for a very, very long time. And then we've actually worked with a lot of our customers, MedTech as well, within MedTech, in terms of trying to get that done. But so many of our customers struggle. Why? Because it ends up that nobody has good data about their asset, right? Either they're, in many cases, that it could be that they're just inaccurate. It could be that they're just spread out across multiple systems. I think someone talked about the fact that, hey, we actually have multiple systems where our IB information is stored. Yeah. We actually had a customer that actually had 20 ERP systems where their IB information is spread out across multiple systems. Why? Because they've acquired companies over the years. It's not like they love SAP or they love ERP. They just have these silos of information. So already there is no single source of truth about the asset information itself. On top of it, even within the individual silos or across different silos, the information is just inaccurate in reality, right? There's duplicate records, there's incompleteness in those records. And as a result, you can't reliably use that data to get insights as well. And then on top of it, whatever information and system that they reside, they're not particularly set up for insights, especially around AI. We talk a lot about AI. AI actually has a lot of prerequisites in terms of how to make that data work for you, right? And then in reality is that in order for AI to work, you need what we describe it as the unified profile of that particular asset. And our customers just don't have it. So a lot of the times our insight, whenever a customer says, hey, ServiceMax, we need to help gain some insights to be able to optimize service or to be able to optimize revenue, it just ends up being a big data project for our customers to figure out where is your asset data and what is accurate. So one of the things that we're doing is we simply built the product to address this problem in ServiceMax, right? What we realized that first and foremost, for us to be able to do anything, we built a new product, right, that is designed to store asset data across multiple systems. It is designed to be able to bring in data, normalize that data, and then be able to actually provide turn that into a high quality data. How do we do that, right? There's a couple different components in my opinion, but first and foremost, it's built to be around to apply AI to look for anomalies within that particular data and then be able to flag it, right? And then on top of it, what it is that we built the system from ground up to be able to do that. The other part, however, in my opinion, is that we have an unfair advantage. We actually have technicians that actually travel to the site and see if they can validate that particular data is correct. We call that field truth, right? So we apply combination of AI as well as the fact that we're gonna have technicians that are actually going out to that particular site. And if there is a data that needs to be validated, then they can do so. They can be automatically prompted and then be able to say, hey, AI basically had flagged this particular anomaly within the data. Can you go ahead and check that out and validate whether that is correct or not? Combination of these different techniques is going to help our customers continue to build a higher data quality, within their install base itself. Now, after a solid asset data foundation is established or have a strategy for maintaining it, we also provided a place where you can actually build specific views into that particular asset. I like to think of it as to be able to answer a specific problem that you're trying to solve, right? So what Asset Hub allows you to do is, first of all, establish and create a place where you can store your asset data and then continue to build on it throughout its life cycle. Second, provide you a place and a ability for you to be able to model that data and then be able to create a view to answer your specific questions about asset or within your install base itself. There's a lot of different things that you can do, right? So first and foremost, now what you have is that you have a single place where you can come to and get information about the asset, knowing that that information is validated and cleansed. And then knowing that that information is organic, you continue to collect information about that particular asset. Second, you also have a place where you can actually start to run analysis against that particular asset. Now, first and foremost, it becomes a source of truth. So for example, what is that asset? Where is that asset located? What has been happening to that particular asset? What was the last time this particular asset was serviced and why?
PTC is helping organizations break down data silos, improve asset data quality, and unlock new levels of service optimization and insight, laying the foundation for predictive, outcome-based service.